Now, I want to get to our next bit of lefty lunacy by introducing, we need some help on this one. It's been in the news today. I'm delighted to welcome back to Outsiders. He was very, very popular last time he was here. I'm not going to say exclusively with the ladies, but certainly, can we say ladies? No, anyway, whatever. Delighted to welcome back to Outsiders, Riccardo Bosi. Riccardo, you are a former Special Forces Lieutenant Colonel.
I like the Lieutenant Colonels because they're like still in the action.
Yeah.
Right? These are the guys who still smell the gunshot. they're not so far back in the chain of command that they're just watching it on a screen.
Well, you'll notice that most coups around the planet are run by colonels.
Yes.
They're just short of that hallowed rank of general.
Yeah. And presumably it's one of the reasons, one of the things which has kind of allowed you, and I hear in the Defence Forces themselves, that from kind of the colonels down, there's still some of the military culture that we so respect and admire, whereas the more senior ranks have just completely bowed.
Well, that's what we're going to talk about.
A lily on a hot day to Canberra.
Well, this is what we're going to talk about, and this is why you're here, Riccardo. Apart from the great news, which you're going to tell us personally, your own great news, which we'll get to in a second. But here we have the Daily Telegraph today, great article by Miranda Devine and Jack Houghton, all about, great headline there, Army drops the H-bomb, Riccardo. So we've learned that there's a guide where basically the Army are told, you know, not to use him and her and he and she, but to use gender-neutral pronouns, just in case the person you happen to be talking to, the soldier you happen to be talking to, might not be the same sex that you thought they were. So it's better to be polite. Now, Maurice Payne was quick to poo-hoo this and say, no, this isn't political correctness gone mad. She was on Alan Jones' 2GB show this morning, Ray Hadley, I'm sorry, this morning, where she pretended that, no, there's nothing to see here. It's not a directive, it's just a kind of nice thing we're doing. Have a listen to Maurice Payne.
The guide does suggest that if you're talking about relationships, then you might want to use a broader term, rather than presuming the person you're talking to is with one person or another. It is very much cast in that light, but we are not changing in any way, shape or form the way in which we require the ADF to work together and to address each other.
OK, Riccardo, fire away, mate.
OK, 2 points. Firstly, I note that Maurice Payne said that she was unaware of this. I find that very hard to believe, because nothing in the military happens without Hire's approval. So either she's out of touch, or the Commandant of the Australian Defence Force Academy, Brigadier Cheryl Pearce, is out of control, because she wrote the piece. I read it, and it was interesting. 2 points on this one. The first definition, because definitions matter, the first definition in the glossary is ally. And it says that an ally is someone outside the LGBTI spectrum, yet a friend of those within the spectrum. Now, can you think of a more emotionally charged word than ally to a soldier? Because what's the opposite of an ally?
Yes.
The enemy.
The enemy, yeah.
So Brigadier Pearce and her judgment is appalling. She's manifestly inadequate to the task because she's dividing her academy instead of uniting. There's one thing, unity of purpose. This nonsense that diversity is strength. I mean, what is that? Up is down, black is white, left is right. It's just nonsense.
Excellent. Ross?
Well, I want to know, is the Defence Force an organisation which is intended to deliver an actual capability to defend this vast continent? Or is Australia's Defence Force merely the pretext to provide subsidies to sort of depressed, formerly industrial towns and to run a broad spectrum social experiment of correct political values, which it seems the latter two are the government's priorities, whereas the first one is the citizens' priority.
Well, that's exactly right. It's not unusual for government to select a location to prop up its electoral chances. The parachute training school was moved down to Nowra. I can't remember the MP at the time. Gash?
Yes.
Joanna Gash?
Yes.
move down there. Now, think of what a parachute school needs. It needs still air and narrows on the coast. And what does the coast get? Secondly, it was co-located with the rotary wing of the Naval Air Arm. And parachutes and helicopter blades don't work well. So, yeah, you're exactly right. They use it as a bit of a stopgap to help their economic inadequacies.
So I want to draw attention to this bloke who was on photographed last week, I think it was. A few people commented on it. He's got a pink fingernail. He's proudly displaying a pink fingernail in support of presumably diversity and inclusion. So, Riccardo, what are your thoughts on this approach to defending our shores? Do you think holding up the pinky with the pink fingernail would deter some aggressive force coming at us that they think, oh, we're not going to invade Australia because they've got diversity and inclusion, so they will welcome us with open arms? What is all this about?
Once again, madness. Look, I'm a first-generation Australian. My parents came out in '51 as teenagers without barely a word of English between them. And when I joined the army, it wasn't unusual to have people from very different backgrounds. In fact, I remember a story that 3 SAS squadrons tour of Vietnam was called the Spot the Aussie Squadron. That's what SAS stood for. And we didn't have Italo soldiers and Greco soldiers. We just soldiers, Australian soldiers. Yeah. And the moment you start to divide and say we have LGBTI soldiers, you're dividing. And once again, a defence force requires unity of purpose, otherwise it fails. And our allies and our adversaries are laughing.
Well, this is sort of my question, is what does the chief of the Admiral, presumably, who runs the Australian Navy, who's got time to order his sailors to paint their nails? That's his top priority, his most important task, his means of instilling discipline and combat readiness in his troops.
It breaks trust. There's only one question to ask, because like any complex organisation, defence has 1,000 choices a minute to make.
Well, one of them, Riccardo, I'll tell you, according to Miranda's article here and according to the guide, misgendering can have a significant effect on transgender individuals, as it is often an expression of a lack of understanding of acceptance of that person's identity. So in the middle of the battlefield, are you sitting there thinking, hang on, that person over there, I'm worried whether I'm misrepresenting their gender? Is that top of mind? Should it be?
You've got to be an imbecile. Because what they don't teach these people, and I can't believe they don't understand this, that life is hard and tough and unfair, and sometimes you just got to hack it. You can do everything right and you don't get what you deserve. You do everything wrong and you get a medal. Soldiers need to understand and live through that. And in a perverse kind of way, the brutality of military training prepares them for just that. Can you hack it? There's nothing to do but hunker down, take the artillery barrage, metaphorical or literal, makes no difference. Be there when it's over and then step up and fight. I remember in 78 when I first joined the Army, Royal Military College, Duntroon. Bunch of kids on a bus, not even 18 years of age yet. Sergeant T.J. Slaney and my colleagues will be shivering their boots now, the most fearsome drill sergeant you can imagine. He got on the bus and in a low menacing voice told us to get off, and we were terrified. And that was the beginning of this process of just being able to handle that which most people can't handle. And think about it, if an individual is going to be upset because they were called the wrong name, something tells me they're not psychologically robust enough to handle warfighting.
Well, look, I just
did
I hear a rumour that
we have some great news
might have been selected to play, you know, a greater role, a new mission has been given to you, whether or not you succeed. What is your new mission?
I've been selected to run as a Senate candidate at the next federal election for the Australian Conservatives for New South Wales.
Well done, Corey Bernardi. Corey knows how to pick them. Well done, Riccardo. Congratulations. That's fantastic news.
Thank you.
And we want to see you there in the Senate so that you can tell Marise Payne to her face what you think about the pinkies and the transgender pronouns.
And so thanks for coming on. We just want to say to the Australian Chief of the Navy, we are expecting next for you to give us the sort of the palette of different colours of nails. We've had pink. We're wondering, what is the next? You know, should we have mauve? Should we have nude? Should we have red perhaps to the Chief of the Navy. I'm sure you're looking at L'Oreal, you're probably looking at the other makers available. Perhaps the Australian Defence Force could brand their own nail polish that could be distributed to troops on arrival on the ship.
Sounds a good idea. Thanks again, Riccardo, and we look forward to seeing you again on Outsiders. Thanks so much.